So for years, I've had a sort of curious fascination with the ability to extend the set of built-in functions in Adobe Cold Fusion. And years ago, I came up with ways to sort of hack it into the URL scope or the hidden scopes of the request context. But in Lucee, the ability to extend the built-in functions using user-defined functions has always been supported, or it's been supported for at least like a decade. And now that I'm actually on Lucee, I wanted to try it out. So as an experiment here, I wanted to try and implement the truthy-falsy concept from JavaScript. So I have an isTruthy function, which will take a value, and essentially the way JavaScript is that anything that's not explicitly defined as a falsy is implicitly a truthy. But in this case, I need to protect against null reference values, so a null value is not a truthy, and then everything else that's not a falsy is a truthy. So the isFalsy function here, you'll notice I'm not importing anything. This is an unscoped reference. This is going to be a built-in function, as is isTruthy, that I'm able to consume across my functions. Let's take a look at isFalsy quickly. Again, this is the falsy concept from JavaScript. Null values are falsy. Anything that's not a simple value, so arrays, structs, queries, so on and so forth, are not falsies. Strings that are empty, that don't have a length, are false. And then any Boolean or numeric value, I can just take the Boolean operator here, and then anything that's not explicitly known or accounted for, I'm just going to say is not a falsy either. Again, given the idea that anything not explicitly a falsy is implicitly a truthy. Okay, so now we have these isFalsy and isTruthy methods. How do we go about doing this? Well, essentially what we can do is we can just drop them into special folders within the Lucee server context. But to make this demo more interesting, I'm going to package these as a .lex file or a Lucee extension file, which is essentially just a zip archive that we can deploy to our server. And we're going to build this lex file programmatically. Now, I've packaged my code, my isFalsy and my isTruthy values, along with this manifest MF file, which is just part of how the Lucee extension works, and I've put them into this extension folder locally. Now what we're going to do is take that extension folder, use the compress method to turn this into a zip file. We're going to actually save that zip file as a .lex file, and we're going to do that directly to the deploy folder of the Lucee server, and we're going to use the Lucee server interpolation value here to figure out where that is. Now we actually have to go up a directory to get into the deploy, but essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take that entire extension directory, zip it, put it into that deploy folder, and what Lucee does is monitor this deploy folder for new lex files, and as they come in, it moves them, it extracts the files and it moves them to the appropriate parts of the Lucee system folders. And at that point, the server has the extensions installed. But the monitoring of this folder doesn't happen right away, so what we're going to do is actually use the existence of our lex file to determine whether or not the extension has been installed. So we're going to move it to the deploy folder, and then we're going to check to see if it's still in that deploy folder. And as long as it's still in that deploy folder, we know it has not yet been installed. So we're going to flush and then sleep here and check that again. And then once this file exists returns false, we know that our extension has been installed. Now sometimes that means that the change takes place right away. Sometimes, in my experience, it doesn't take place right away, in which case we might have to restart the Lucee service in order to see the changes. I don't know why that experience was inconsistent, but it does seem to be, and that's a little bit beyond my understanding. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this works. So this is going to be the deploy folder, right? This is deep down here in my command box list of servers, web and Lucee server. Here's the deploy folder. And here is the build page, and let's refresh and jump back to here. And you can see here's our truthy falsy lex file, and you can see we're sleeping here and then rechecking to see when this file exists. And we'll just, it may take up to a minute, so we'll just pause here while we are monitoring the existence of this file. Just waiting, takes up to a minute. And there we go. So now the lex file has been deployed. We can see that it's no longer in the server folder here. And again, I could restart the server if I wanted to. For reference, the restart just uses the cfadmin tag to restart the server. My password here is command box because I'm just using the command box instance locally. Now to test this, to see if it worked, all I'm going to do is try a bunch of values against the isFalsy and isTruthy methods. These are just testing the rules here, and when we run this, we can see that these all of our tests pass, all of our assertions pass here, right? So an empty string is false, a 0 is false, but a string that contains 0 is not a falsy. It's actually true because it's a non-empty string, and this is where some of the implicit Boolean conversions differ from the way ColdFusion handles things. Anyway, this was just kind of a fun exploration, my first exploration into extensions in Lucee, and extensions can do a whole lot more than just install custom functions. They can install custom tags, they can install jar files, they can install full-on application and administrative plugins, but that's so far beyond anything I've tried to do at this time.